Welcome to this explainer. Okay, so today we are exploring a really massive paradigm shift in how we understand Parkinson's disease. For decades, we viewed this condition through a very specific, primarily chemical lens. But new frameworks are emerging right now that fundamentally challenge that status quo, revealing a brain dynamic that is actually much more about the rhythm of communication than just the chemicals facilitating it. Let's jump right in with a pretty wild question to challenge everything we thought we knew about the root cause of this disease. Is Parkinson's simply a lack of dopamine, or is it actually a failure of time? It sounds a bit like a philosophical riddle, doesn't it? But it's actually the absolute cutting edge of neurological theory. We are shifting from thinking of the brain as a simple chemical reservoir that runs dry to viewing it as this intricate, master-crafted clock that's slowly losing its rhythm. To unpack this completely new framework, here is our roadmap. 1. The limits of dopamine. 2. The timing architecture hypothesis. 3. Symptoms as timing failures. 4. Neurobites and adaptive myelin. And 5. The future with neuro AI. All right, starting with section 1, the limits of dopamine. We're looking at the traditional view versus the clinical reality. Traditionally, we've defined Parkinson's by the loss of dopamine-producing neurons in the substantia nigra, right? Along with the accumulation of those Lewy bodies containing alpha-synuclein. And sure, that chemical pathology perfectly explains many of the classic motor symptoms, but it leaves a really glaring blind spot. Patients deal with widespread cognitive decline, sensory issues, and autonomic disturbances too. So if this is purely a localized dopamine problem, why on earth is the entire nervous system seemingly misfiring? Moving to section 2, the timing architecture hypothesis. We are completely reframing the brain's communication. This is where the ECEPJ V2.0 framework comes in, and it shifts our focus entirely away from just chemistry and into mechanics. It proposes that Parkinson's is actually a progressive disruption of the brain's neural timing architecture, extending way beyond a simple neurotransmitter deficit. Think of it like this. Having a full tank of gas in your car's engine is great, right? But if the spark plugs aren't firing at the exact right millisecond, well, the engine is still going to stall. This framework suggests the brain's internal spark plugs are losing their precise synchronization. To really grasp the disease state, we need to picture the healthy baseline. Imagine a perfectly timed symphony. In a healthy brain, it's not just about which individual neurons fire, it's all about exactly when those signals arrive to keep everything synchronized on a massive scale. It's a huge cooperative effort. You've got neurons, oligodendrocytes, and astrocytes all working together seamlessly, like an orchestra following a conductor, to ensure every single signal hits its mark at the perfect microsecond. And that brings us to this fascinating concept of neurobites. Under this framework, when neural timing is perfectly synchronized across these massive brain networks, transient integration events emerge. We call these neurobites. They are essentially the stable, successful beats of that healthy neural symphony. They're the measurable moments when the brain is perfectly in sync and processing information as a unified whole. But as degeneration sets in, that beautiful rhythm fragments. The communication between major networks, like your cortical, basal ganglia, thalamic, and cerebellar networks, it all starts to resemble a badly dubbed movie. The signals are there, but they are completely out of sync. That degeneration throws off the metronome, and the intricate timing relationships between these critical regions just breaks down. Okay, section 3, symptoms as timing failures. Let's reevaluate the classic motor symptoms. Let's ground this theory in clinical reality for a second. Take bradykinesia, that slowness of movement. Under this new framework, it's not weakness at all. It's actually a delayed initiation and propagation of the neural signal. Rigidity? That comes from reduced flexibility within the motor timing loops. Tremors is seen as abnormal oscillatory synchronization. Basically, the network gets stuck in a repetitive timing loop. And freezing of gait, which is absolutely fascinating, isn't the brain forgetting how to walk. It actually reflects a sudden transient collapse of timing coherence across the entire motor network. The system just temporarily loses its internal clock. So, to sum up this paradigm shift, rather than a simple loss of movement commands, Parkinson's disease may involve a failure of network timing precision that completely changes how we look at a patient struggling to initiate a movement. The command is absolutely there, it's the timing to execute it that's failing. Section 4, Neurobites and Adaptive Myelin. Let's dig into the underlying mechanics. If neurobites are those perfect symphonic beats we talked about, The ECEPJ framework predicts exactly how they'll break down as the disease progresses. We'd expect to see reduced neurobyte density and reduced integration stability when they do manage to form. On top of that, we see increased timing variability, increased fragmentation, and finally prolonged inter-event intervals. Literally, we're talking about longer gaps of silence between the brain's coordinated beats. What's amazing is that scientists can actually translate these physical breakdowns into specific, measurable indices. As the disease marches on, the neural integration index plummets. The brain just fails to integrate. Meanwhile, metrics like the neural fragmentation index, timing instability index, and overall timing failure scores absolutely skyrocket. These aren't just abstract ideas either. These are concrete data points mapping the exact degradation of the brain's internal clock. Now, to understand exactly how these metrics fail, we have to talk about adaptive myelin. Myelin is essentially the brain's biological wire insulation, but it's not static, it's highly adaptive. It actively regulates conduction delays across your neural networks, speeding up or slowing down signals so they all arrive at the exact same millisecond. When adaptive myelin is healthy, the timing is flawless, just like fiber optic cables perfectly routing internet traffic. But in Parkinson's, a pretty devastating cascade takes place. Step 1 is the disruption of oligodendrocyte function in myelin maintenance. Step 2 is a loss of astrocyte-mediated metabolic support, and Step 3 leads to a systems-level failure of the timing architecture. Now, this sequence is absolutely critical because it suggests that this timing degradation can begin long before the extensive loss of dopaminergic neurons even happens. The system's timing fails before the structure itself fully collapses. Which brings us to Section 5, the future with neuro-AI. Tracking the brain's internal clocks. By combining this timing framework with advanced AI, what's called ECEPJ neuro-AI, we could potentially track these internal timing metrics completely non-invasively. We wouldn't necessarily need invasive procedures. We could just use standard EEG scans to capture the brain's electrical activity and then let AI do the heavy lifting to calculate those fragmentation and instability indices. It's a revolutionary and, honestly, a highly optimistic window into tracking the disease. Because think about it. Validating these timing architecture biomarkers gives doctors an incredible new toolset. Imagine a future where an EEG scan analyzing your neurobytes could correlate with motor severity scores, track the subtle onset of cognitive decline, map exactly where you are in the disease progression, and even measure your treatment response or deep brain stimulation outcomes in real time. It completely takes the guesswork out of tracking the progression. As we start to wrap up, keep this in mind. While dopamine loss remains a central pathological feature, many clinical manifestations emerge from progressive disruption of synchronization. The textbooks aren't wrong. Dopamine is absolutely key, but the ECEPJ V2.0 framework reveals that the precise, rhythmic synchronization of the entire system is what truly orchestrates the disease's most devastating clinical symptoms. So, I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought to ponder. What happens to brain health when we shift our focus from merely fixing a chemical imbalance to fundamentally repairing the brain's internal clocks? It's a massive paradigm shift, opening up incredible avenues to not just treat, but truly restore the rhythm of the human brain. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning the mechanics of everything.